What did you think was a weird quirk you had that turned out to be a symptom of a mental/physical health issue? Nearly every period, I would get a terrible pain in my backside, like a stabbing pain which would make me stop wherever I was. I also had a twisting back pain on the left side of my back. The doctors dismissed it as periods are painful and there's a wide range of normal. Finally had an MRI in my 30s and I have stage 4 endometriosis with deep infiltrating lesions. Adhesions had stuck my bowel to my uterus and also strangled my left ureter so that my kidney couldn't drain properly and was swollen. On the mental health side, I got so used to feeling like I was a hypochondriac with a low pain threshold that, to this day, I automatically assumed I'm being melodramatic when I'm ill. Repeating words in my head since I was a child. Then one day I went to the ER and I was extremely anxious and the doctor gave me an anti-anxiety pill and I noticed that ended the repetitive thought and words. As a kid I wanted to be carried everywhere, like piggyback rides, etc., for way too long. Like I was an almost 5-foot tall 8-year-old asking to be carried on vacation. My feet hurt after walking more than 2 blocks. My mom took me to a podiatrist to prove there was nothing wrong with me and it turns out I had severe fallen arches and plantar fasciitis and needed corrective insoles to fix my gait. She took me for ice cream after that appointment. My son was snoring since birth and it was ignored by his doctor. Changed doctors, and they immediately discovered his severe anemia and also referred him to an ENT. ENT said my son was breathing through a coffee stir stick-sized passage. After his hemoglobin levels recovered, he had a full tonsil/adenoidectomy. Snoring gone. Appetite shot up. He grew 7 inches and 3 clothing sizes that year. And did you know that growth hormones are only released when you're sleeping? If your sleep is interrupted, like from heavy snoring, growth hormones don't get released. Sometimes if I was really tired or jet-lagged I'd wake up and for a few seconds the room would look larger than it actually was or I wouldn't recognize things that were totally familiar even though I knew they were things I'd seen before. Jamais vu, reverse déjà vu. Turns out I had epilepsy without realizing for years. I later developed other types of seizures. I had headaches for several years. I was basically told it was nothing. Nope, baseball-sized brain tumor. I'm really good now. That was when I was 21. I'm 50 now and I've had 6 brain surgeries, disc replacements, and cancer. But you know what got me through it every time? Being in shape. If I hadn't started working out hardcore at 15, I think I'd have been dead a long time ago. My parents thought I ignored them a lot because I often didn't listen as a young child. Turns out I had severe chronic ear infections that caused a surge of earwax to clog up my ears and put pressure on my eardrums so bad that I was practically deaf. I had to have surgery to fix it. Needing constant naps. I was already on a stimulant for my ADHD, but my body demanded that I nap for 2 hours just 4 hours after I woke up in the morning, after receiving a full 10 hours. Turns out I'm narcoleptic. I was a fidgety kid and would do odd things like whisper words under my breath every time I spoke, say certain words a lot, tap things, make sounds. I mostly grew out of it, but when I woke up in my 20s with sudden onset motor and vocal tics, by which point I'd almost forgotten what an odd kid I was, I went to a neurologist and it turns out I have Tourette's syndrome. It was only when he asked if I had any unusual habits as a child it clicked that I'd had it all along. I played volleyball as a kid and was a great server. When I was 13, I served the ball and immediately felt horrible lower back pain. I went to complain to my mom and she totally blew it off since my dad and grandpa both suffer from low back pain. Fast forward through the volleyball season and I was still suffering with pain every day. My mom finally took me to the doctor since I was complaining so much and one x-ray proved I have spondylolisthesis, which is common in gymnasts, football players, and other people where they extend a lot. Turns out I needed a spinal fusion and months of physical therapy. All my life when I was growing up I was always uncoordinated. I had no balance, I was never able to skate, my coordination was terrible, I had scoliosis, and hearing loss and a hand tremor. My whole body was just not right. I fought against all that very hard. I became a bike racer, I've done Ironman triathlons, I've hiked the at. Yeah, I am sure I was compensating. But finally in my 50s, after a bout of severe foot neuropathy, I was diagnosed with a congenital neuromuscular disease called Charcot-Marie-Tooth or CMT, which demyelinates the peripheral nerves and really screws with the body's biomechanics. I was fighting a huge uphill battle the whole time. When I was about 12 or so I started coughing nonstop for long periods of time, not real coughs but like I had a hair in my throat. I'd also have bouts of blinking my eyes rapidly nonstop. My mother used to yell at me to knock out off and I told her I couldn't. Years later we were watching a show about Tourette's and there was a kid with the exact same symptoms and my mother and I both turned and looked at one another like, holy crap. I don't know if I have any tics anymore or if I outgrew it or what. I have some vocal compulsions but they might just be ADHD symptoms. I should probably get diagnosed. Nobody has ever told me I have any weird symptoms or anything so I dunno. If you enjoy the video, smash that like button, subscribe, it will help us greatly and it's free. Leave a comment if you have stories to share and our team wishes you have a great day. When I was about 13-14 I used to complain about stomach aches and sore throats a lot. My parents thought I was faking it to stay home from school and the doctors blamed everything on anxiety/periods. Turns out I have a hiatal hernia. My stomach acid was leaking into my throat when I was lying down at night and was starting to damage my esophagus. I was always annoyed at the other kids my age because they were so childish. And I always got praise from my teachers for my problem-solving skills, and they all used to say the same thing, that I was thinking outside the box. It was such a weird concept for me to receive praise for something that just seems like an obvious solution to a problem, and people reacted as if I was some kind of genius. I just couldn't fathom that other people would miss the details that were obvious to me. This, coupled with not picking up on social cues, hardly ever showing body language or facial expressions, monotone voice, staring a lot, more advanced vocabulary than my peers, not understanding sarcasm, analyzing jokes to death because sometimes jokes aren't logical and people found me annoying for doing this, treating plushies as if they had actual feelings, preferring to play with pets rather than other kids, reading nonfiction during the morning readings when all the other kids read like mystery books, severely disliking certain fabrics and textures, being hypersensitive to noises and light. I'm surprised that people don't usually notice that I'm autistic. Growing up, my mom's side of the family always claimed the women were special and like witches. We could see ghosts, hear their voices, etc. I have so many stories of seeing ghosts, or watching things move that shouldn't have. I hear a lot of random voices. Once someone whispered in my ear, "Can you hear me?" when I was alone. Turns out we're all either bipolar, me, with added depression for fun, or schizophrenic. The ghosts are more fun though. Just thought I was a tired, sleepy person. Always amazed by how much energy people had every day, but I have always enjoyed couch potato activities, so I assumed it was a me problem and I was just built that way, thought I must be lazy. Well, it was a me problem, a stomach problem. My body was using all my energy trying to digest food and draining me of vitality. I went on a simplistic diet and just bounced back. Turns out stomach dysfunction runs in the family. Now I'm trying to get fit, I got a new job with all that energy, and I'm making a cross-country move. You, reading this, the person with no energy for anything. Maybe you're depressed, but maybe there's a physical problem. Get checked out. This story made me think, it would be good to have a checkup. I too had problems in the past with concentration at school or projects I was not interested in. Anyway, let's continue. Rehearsing conversations and their potential branches before speaking to someone, being obsessed with textures and touch, needing to shave every hair from the neck down. Otherwise, I could feel them being moved and compressed by my clothes. Oh, and using quotes and references in 90% of my conversations. Turns out they're not quirks, and coupled with my issues, they make me rather autistic. I wish I knew 20 years ago. Food cravings that went beyond just silly little hankerings and became extreme to the point of damaging my teeth, causing rapid weight gain or giving me kidney stones. Turns out food hyperfixation is a symptom of ADHD. Once a food hit just right at the right time, it was all I could think about and wanted to eat for weeks or months. Always had weird-looking nails since I was a kid. Like kind of flat, wavy, and with vertical lines. Occasionally, I would get extreme random pain in my knees. I had purpura, aka Haynock-Schönlein syndrome, when I was 18 months old. Anyways, I live a normal life and play sports until, fast forward to my mid-20s, I start getting sausage fingers after every volleyball practice. I must have an injury or carpal tunnel, I think. Many doctors and tests later, turns out I have psoriatic arthritis. When I was in high school, I would randomly get obsessively focused on brushing my teeth, especially at the gums of my front bottom teeth. It would randomly just click, and all I could think of was the almost feel-good pain you feel when you brush your gums with a toothbrush. I couldn't stop thinking about it till I physically brushed my teeth, to the point of bleeding, then rinsed with mouthwash that contains alcohol. The pain from the alcohol is what finally got me to stop hyperfixating. I always thought it had to do with me not taking care of my teeth that well normally, that I would need to overcompensate when I remembered. For years the feeling went away till I was younger in my career. One day that click happened, and for almost a week, it would take everything out of me to not brush my gums all day. At the end of it I had a panic attack. I suffer from high anxiety, which has caused a couple panic attacks since high school, and even adrenal failure. The hyperfixation is just a warning sign. Now anytime I get the feeling of pulling my teeth out, I know I have a serious issue I need to address concerning my anxiety. Hypnagogic hallucinations. For my entire life, I would hear things while I was trying to fall asleep. Anything from screaming to strange music to people talking in the next room. Over the years I just got used to it the best I could. When I started seeing a sleep doctor for my apnea, they were asking a lot of questions, and I mentioned this. It led to some other questions and tests, which led to a narcolepsy diagnosis. I don't have the classic presentation, but I have very disordered sleep-wake cycles. It was always bothersome. I never knew it actually meant anything. My handwriting was terrible, balance sucked, and I would have tremors especially in my hands after vigorous exercise. I thought I had Parkinson's. It was just mild cerebral palsy, which is non-progressive, and I'll have it for life. Definitely beats having Parkinson's, especially as a teen. Constantly got yelled at by teachers for not listening and got spanked at home for it. Everyone thought I just didn't care or that I was stupid. One day, a doctor decides I need a hearing test, and it turns out there's a bunch of fluid built up in my ears, and without tubes, I'd be completely deaf. The only person who apologized to me was my mom, and that took 15 years. My weird quirk was having really sensory-sensitive problems with sounds, textures, and lights with really bad social abilities. The only pro my parents found is that I was really quiet, still, and smart for my age. It turns out I was autistic, and the only reason I was so still and quiet was because I had to shut down due to the overwhelming sensory issues I had. Got diagnosed like 9 months ago. I'm 15. My whole life, I have dealt with becoming obsessive over new things, like when I hear a new song I like, I will listen to it hundreds of times on repeat and not get tired of it. New hobby? It consumes my being. I have also had a running daydream story since about middle school. It's an ongoing story with characters I made up, and a self-insert of course, and I used to listen to music and imagine fight scenes and things like that. It turns out, both of those things are symptoms of ADHD, especially in women. I never got tested as a kid because my mom believed that none of her kids have a mental illness. I think we can draw the conclusion that not everyone is lazy. The human body, especially the brain, is very complex, and we should go to the doctor at least once a year for some tests, especially when we feel that something is not right. This was today's video. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to press the like button and subscribe, would help us a lot. That way you will be able to see every time we post, at least one video a day. See you next time.